Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today I've got 5 hacks for you that will help you catch more fish this winter. Winter fishing can be incredible, but it's certainly got its own set of challenges. If you go out fishing with the same baits, same places, same times of day that you've done all year long, winter is probably going to be a struggle for you. There are some minor adjustments, little tricks, little hacks that you can apply to your fishing that will completely change your winter experience on the water. So today, I've got 5 of those things that I want to talk to you about. Some of them are baits, specific baits that will help you. Some of them are like little modifications to baits. Some of them have nothing to do with lures at all. It has to do with your placement and your timing on the water. With that, let's jump into it. The first thing that I want to talk about, wintertime hack number 1, is fishing line. Fishing line is something that day in and day out we don't really think about, right? You spool your reels up, you forget about it. Well, in the winter time, when it starts getting really cold, especially when it starts to freeze, your line comes to the forefront. All of a sudden, it's either really good or really bad. If you've got braid on your spools and you're out and it's 15 degrees and your spools are freezing up, all of a sudden you are very aware of your fishing line. If you've got fluorocarbon spooled up and it's super stiff because of how cold it is and it's giving you all kinds of trouble, you're very aware of your fishing line. So here's it's sort of 2-in-1 here, 2 quick little tips for fishing line. Number 1 is that this is actually the time of year where if I'm using fluorocarbon as a main line, I tend to go to less expensive fluorocarbon. Not because I'm going through it faster, not because I need to save the money, it's because high-end fluorocarbon tends to be very hard. And in cold water conditions and cold air temperatures, that can be exacerbated, meaning the line gets so stiff that it's tough to fish with. It will backlash more often. It'll sort of build up on the spool. It won't lay down smooth. What I've found for wintertime to combat that is to go to those sort of mid-priced fluorocarbons. Sunline Assassin FC is a perfect example of that. That is a line that for years I've used in the middle of winter because it is a very supple fluorocarbon. It is softer, it lays better on a spool than a lot of other lines. When I'm in that really cold situation, it just lays down better. I have less backlashing and I have less problems. And of course, you're saving some money on the front end as well. Now the other line trick has to do with dropping down in your line size. This is Seaguar Grand Max. This is leader material. I use this tied to my braided line for all sorts of different things. But what I want to talk about specifically is that in the winter time, bass do not pull as hard as they do in the summertime. A fish, if you catch the same fish today and in July, that fish will pull twice as hard in July as it does today. That's just reality. So you can get away with lighter line this time of year, and that's going to allow you to get more bites, fish more comfortably, make better presentations. There's just a ton of advantages to fishing that lighter line. But here's the trick. So the Seaguar Grand Max, I've been using this stuff for quite a while now, and I'm so blown away by it. It is an unbelievably thin fluorocarbon for its strength. So what that means is in the past, if I was throwing a jig on 15-pound in the summer, by the time I got to winter, I would throw it on 10 or 12-pound. Since I've been using this Grand Max as my leader, I've stopped paying attention to the strength and I've started paying attention to the little numbers, line diameter. What I've found is that when I switch over to this stuff, I'm using the same strength or even stronger, but it's thinner than what I usually use. So I can, if I want to, I can be using a super strong line that's thinner, or I can back it down even farther. I'm going to incredibly thin line, but it is still quite strong. And I 100% am getting more bites on those winter mornings, those cold mornings where the fish aren't reacting and I'm fishing slow on the bottom, making contact. I'm 100%, I'm getting more bites because I've gone to a thinner line. It makes a huge, huge difference. Hack number 2, let's talk about a bait. Okay, this one's really simple. It's the A-rig. Okay, some people love A-rigging. Some people think it's the worst thing in bass fishing. Really doesn't matter. Here's what I'm here to tell you. The A-rig this time of year can save your entire day, your entire season. The A-rig is unlike other baits. It imitates an entire school of bait fish. When the A-rig came to be, we were all mind blown, right? Everybody was shocked. Nobody really saw that coming. But what we realized was there were fish that were pressured, that were willing to chase a school of bait fish that had decided they weren't dumb enough to eat the singles anymore. So you used to be able to catch them on the swim bait, it stopped working. You went to the A-rig, they bit again. Well, those fish were targeting schools of bait fish, not single bait fish. If you continue to leave the A-rig out of your game, I mean, it's entirely up to you. If you're doing it because you think the A-rig is lame, I think you've lost your mind. If you're doing it because fishing an A-rig is cumbersome and heavy and it's hard and it's not that fun, totally get it. But here's the trick. These two rigs right here. These are rigs that Tim and I built with Hog Farmer. They build some of the best rigs in the world. That's why we went to them and said, hey, can you build what we want? We make a bunch of rigs with them, but these are the two smallest. This is the Tactical Mini Flex rig. This is much smaller than a standard A-rig. This is the Tactical Micro Flex rig, and it is tiny. Even compared to an already small rig, it is tiny. This thing fishes like a spinnerbait. This is not heavy, it's not cumbersome, nor is this one. They are not hard to throw. You don't need big heavy gear. Listen, the A-rig is special. It will get you bites. These are fish that will not eat other things. They've been conditioned, they get it. They're more cautious than the rest. Oftentimes that's bigger fish that are like that, but they still fall for a rig. That school of bait fish passing them triggers something inside them and they lash out. These rigs, these flex rigs, what that means is we designed these rigs to be incredibly soft and flexible. We don't just fish these on a straight retrieve. We straight retrieve and then we rip and bump and work that. And as that school is swimming through the water, when we work that rod, the school will narrow down and flare out, narrow down and flare out. And it imitates a school of bait fish panicking and running. That's what they do. They're swimming, and when a bass comes up on them, they all tighten up and then they split, they take off. That's what that rig imitates. But for the guy who really, really wants to experience that but doesn't want to take the beating, right? When A-rigging started, guys were using big swim bait gear and punching setups, all this crazy gear to throw it. You don't need any of that. The Mini, you could throw that on any jig rod you own, any medium heavy rod you own. The Micro, you could throw that on a medium heavy. You can throw this on a spinning rod. You can throw it on a bait finesse rod. I've done all of it. I have verified that that is true myself. I went out, spent an entire day slinging this on a 7-foot medium spinning rod, just wailing on fish just because I could. Now here's the key to both of these rigs. Here's the tip that will help you whether you use these rigs or one you already own. It does not matter to me. The heads on the Mini, those are 1/8 ounce heads. On the Micro, these are a very specific head designed by Z-Man, also 1/8 ounce. 1/8 ounce is critical because that allows me to fish my rig much slower than everyone else. You would be shocked if you were on the boat in person. You see it all the time. You see Tim and I fishing, but when you're actually standing there looking at a guy's reel, you would be shocked to see how slow we go in the heart of winter. I know we are fishing a rig slower than other people. We are using a rig that stays very natural and has great motion and movement at those slow speeds. And then we're very specific with our bait selection as well, so that we have swim baits that will swim very consistently at those slow speeds. And as a result, we get bit long after it stops working for other people. Those subtle details are everything in the winter. If you grab the same rig that you throw all year and you go out, sure, you might catch fish on it. But if you dial it down for cold water, very specific dummies, very specific main baits, very specific weights in the heads, you are going to catch more fish than other anglers are. That's just reality. These little hacks matter in the wintertime. They matter more in winter than any other time of year. All right, the third one, strolling, the jig and minnow, right? The jig and minnow has become a major part of bass fishing. That's just reality. And I've got several more hacks here for you. Some have nothing to do with baits. We'll get to another one of those here in a second. But the jig and minnow took bass fishing by storm several years ago, and it continues to do so. It's on every boat deck. Bank anglers are using them. It doesn't matter. If you have the most advanced modern electronics, the best forward-facing sonar, you're fishing that jig and minnow effectively. If you have none of that, and you are standing on a shoreline, throwing this thing out into the middle of the lake, and shaking with one hand and reeling with the other, you are fishing a jig and minnow effectively. That's the beauty of that technique. Everyone can use it. Much like a finesse swim bait, you just throw it out and reel it back. This is that same concept, but instead of just reeling, you're shaking. So instead of a swim bait with that paddle tail kicking back there, this guy, as you shake it, just gets this little bit of body wobble to it, and the tail's just back there flicking and doing its thing. That's all it takes. The fish are all about it. Now, what is the hack for this time of year? Go way more subtle and go way lighter. Two baits for you here. The first one from Hog Farmer. This is called the Stroll Shad. Most people know Hog Farmer for the spunk shad, the just most unbelievable chatterbait trailer that was ever invented. The thing is incredible. That spunk shad is amazing. As it turns out, it's excellent for strolling as well. Almost everyone overlooks it for that. It's incredible for it. But Hog Farmer also built the Stroll Shad, which is a slimmer, smooth-bodied, flatter side, and then an elongated tail, so even more tail motion when you're shaking this thing. I throw the larger sizes of this bait a ton, but when the water is like it is now, when we go into winter, I drop down instantly. This is the 4-inch Stroll Shad, and I drop down to a 3/16-ounce guppy head. That little combination, my confidence is off the charts in catching fish on that little setup right there all winter long. I have the confidence in this that I used to have in the 2.8 Kitech before every other boat on the planet started throwing it. That's how much confidence I have in this thing. I smash them on that 4-inch Stroll Shad all winter long. It's remarkable. Now the other one, this is from Z-Man. This is called the Graph Shads. This is such an overlooked bait. The colder the water gets, the more subtle we get with our presentation. So in the middle of summertime, we all see the like Facebook ads running and stuff, right? Of jig and minnow baits underwater, and they're like flipping upside down, coming through the water. Some of that works in really warm water. A lot of that I think is just to catch anglers, period. But in the winter in particular, we want a very subtle motion. The bait fish are not charging around, ripping around, flipping upside down. That's not what they're doing. We just want this subtle rocking action with a great little tail motion to imitate that real life. That's why that 4-inch stroll shad works so well. Same with this Z-Man. This graph shads, let me pop this open. This is a remarkable bait. It's unlike any other minnow bait on the market. Everybody overlooks it, and I have caught giants on this thing. Check this out. This is the bait. Look how natural it looks. The head is specifically designed for this bait. The pairing looks more like a shad than anything else I've seen. What's unique about it is that it's line through. So the line goes through the top of the head, and then you actually tie to this little line tie on the chin. The result, and by the way, I tie that with a San Diego jam knot. So I put the line through, tie a San Diego jam, pull it up tight. That's how I do it. The result with the line through the bait is that if you're fishing deep water and you're doing nothing, you just hold the line tight, this thing hovers dead flat in the water. It's not pointed up, it's not pointed down. It sits perfectly suspended in the water column. Now, what I found with this bait, and the reason I want to talk about it right now, is I've caught them on it in the summer. I've caught big ones on it in the summer, but I've caught the biggest ones in the winter. On the days where they want nothing else, on the days where the water temperatures have crashed to their coldest, water temps in the 30s and low 40s, I will take this bait, drop it all the way to bottom, and then just barely pick it up, and I just barely, I'm not shaking that minnow, I'm just barely bumping that minnow. And I think it's the combination of how natural it looks, how perfectly it sits upright, and then every time I bump it, that tail just kicks just a little bit. It's more than those big cold water fish can resist. And I wreck shop with this thing in really cold water. Those two baits, those carry me through winter. They make a huge, huge difference in my fishing. They will for you too if you take the time to try them. Hack number 4 has to do with timing. If you're the guy who's always wanted to catch a big bass, your PB is not where you want it. You hear guys talk about breaking their PBs in the winter. You hear about all these giant fish getting caught. Maybe you hear about them getting caught on your lake, right? You go to the tackle shop, you go to the boat ramp, the marina, and you hear about these big fish, and it just never happens to you. I'm gonna clue you in. Here's a little hack. If it's year after year, and it's just not happening for you, it could be the baits, right? It could be that you're not adapting, you're not paying attention to the details like we've been talking about. But if you are, and it's not happening for you, I can almost guarantee you it's the time of day and it's the location. What I mean is that there have been countless times where Tim and I are catching giants at a time of day that no one expects. People think, logic would say, these bass, they're in cold water, they're cold, they should be lethargic. In the middle of the day when the sun is the highest, like I'm down to a t-shirt right now, I'm starting to feel a little better. I keep sticking my hands in because they're still frozen, but it's getting warmer. The middle of the day, you would think those biggest fish, they'd be warming up, they'd be feeling that, and they'd want to feed. Well, that is not what I've experienced. What I've experienced is that the colder it gets, the more likely that the biggest fish feed low light. And what I mean by that is early and late in the day. Low light periods, right at daylight, right at dark. I'm not talking 9, 10, 11 in the morning. I'm talking daylight. What I believe is going on is that these fish, the water's cold. I think that they are feeding when the odds, and this is just my personal opinion, they are feeding when the odds are the absolute highest. The odds are in their favor. So they are down on bottom, they're up against a piece of cover, whatever it may be. If you're on a really clear lake, they may be down deep looking up. But right as we start to see daylight, from their vantage point, tucked away, they can see the open water really clearly. And they can sight feed the bait fish. So it's when the odds are the highest that they can see the prey, but the prey cannot see them. The table is turned and they have the most advantage, and that is when they hunt. So it may literally be that you are not setting your alarm early enough in the morning because it's cold out there and you don't think you need to, and that is the only thing holding you back from catching a giant fish. Now, we do still catch them in the middle of the day, but what I find is it's, again, the opposite of what you expect. I don't catch them on this beautiful sunny bank. I tend to catch the biggest ones on the opposing bank, in the shade, in the dark, hunting on those shade lines, even in the cold water. I don't think sitting in the sun actually helps those fish whatsoever. I think the shade gives them advantage. They know how to use it, and that's why they're there. That brings us to hack number 5, which is just a simple color tip that I talk about at least once a winter every year. Some people take the time to hear me. They catch a lot of fish because of it. Other people, it floats on by and they just miss it because I don't talk about it all the time. That is the color purple in the winter. Now, you guys know I love June bug in the summer. That's like a deep, dark purple. I'm not talking about June bug. I'm talking about those brighter, bolder purples. There is something about it right now as we're dropping into those coldest temperatures for winter. There is just something about this that gets them. And I apply it to all of my slow bottom contact presentations. Just a couple examples for you. The finesse football, one of my favorite baits to throw in the wintertime. Hands down my favorite bottom contact bait in the wintertime. This color is called super matte brown. It's cinnamon brown and a bright, bold purple. I have a ton of confidence in this. The Ned Rig is another phenomenal example. From X-Zone, we've got their Ned Zone. Check out this color right here. And again, I will link all of this in the video description. From the A-rigs to the line, all this stuff. I'll give you the specific baits on the A-rigs. I'll give you my favorite line sizes on the Grand Max and the Assassin. I'll give you the very specific colors for the Ned Rig. But look at that color from X-Zone. It's like a very natural, almost an earthworm brown on one side, but then it's that bright, bold purple on the other. I can't even tell you why this matters, why it works. But I can tell you that for the last 20 plus years, I smash a lot of numbers of fish on these purple baits in the cold water. And then last, from Z-Man, that finesse TRD, the original, we've got that mood ring color. It's sort of a subtle on one side and then that bolder purple on the other side. It's amazing how well that little thing can change your fishing. You go from getting one here and there to catching a pile of fish on a tough day by adding that purple in. It's just something you should try. I'm not saying that it will be the end all be all on your lake. I'm not saying you'll catch a 12-pounder because you put on a purple Ned Rig, but I'm just saying that year after year after year, when it gets tough, when I slow down, I put purple on there, I just seem to get more bites. It helps. Guys, I hope this helps you. This is an amazing time of year to be on the water. You really can catch the biggest bass of your life over the coming weeks and months. But little subtle details make all the difference. And if you're not paying attention, you will blow it. These things will help you. You can catch a ton of fish. You can have a blast out there on the water. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.